Hey, we're back with another episode. This gentleman just can't seem to get hazed enough times by me on Drum Talk TV. So once again, we welcome Jimmy Keegan. Jimmy, you've been on the show several times since I think like 2014 or something when we were
Yeah,
based in Vegas back then, right?
yeah. Did a couple things early on, and then a couple of things recent. Well, one thing recently.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to talk to you about something that I'm super impressed with. We had Steven on, our producer, my son, just before we went live, and he was talking about it. But for those who don't know, Jimmy Keegan has a new album coming out. You can pre-order it now. Steve will put the link in the comments and pin it, even though it's also in the post. It's an awesome album. Took him forever to come up with the name. It's titled Jimmy Keegan.
Yeah, well,
That worked out well. It's by Jimmy Keegan. Did you
it's amazing
consider
what
other
happens when your
names?
friends help you. No, I actually had two names for a long time, and my friend Greg, who besides being a musician and singer on the album and composing a couple of the songs, he's my best friend, so he helps me with everything. Thank God. Um, he we got the primary artwork from Greg Crane, who is the artist relations for Yamaha, who
Yeah,
happens to be a brilliant pencil sketch
I
artist.
never
So
knew that. I've had him on
yeah,
the show.
so
I never knew that.
he did the image, and then Greg Lestraps did the layout, the
Yeah,
design and everything like that. And I don't think I told him the name of the record, so I think he just assumed it was called Jimmy Keegan, so that's what it was. It
that's
was all done, and I
hilarious.
kind of went, whatever.
That's great. And we've got the name, or rather the album cover, right in the player between our two names so people can see it. And it's a great rendition of you. It's great. I've seen you make that face.
I have, yeah. I have a picture that I sent him. It was originally a picture I sent to my daughter in relation to my granddaughter's birthday. We were
Oh,
looking around, and I have a sweater. Oh, I don't have it with me. A hoodie that has these four images on my face that my daughter at some point had taken. She was taking pictures. She's a photographer, and she took a bunch of shots, and I made faces. Just like goofy, strange faces. And so she took this series of pictures and posted them on social media, being funny. Years later, Chris makes me this sweater, and she just found these images without realizing that Brittany had taken these images
that's funny.
and made this hoodie for me. And I love the hoodie. I think it's hilarious. And so I sent this image to my daughter of me wearing the hoodie with these pictures, making another face, and that's the face I used for the record.
That's
So it's all this
great.
weird tying of these strange images of my mug.
That's funny. So, you know, I sometimes feel like when I interview someone about their work and I give a lot of praise, I never want it to come off and sound like ass kissing. I did give an ass kicking once. We won't talk about him, but I don't want it to come off like that. But if I don't like something, I'm not shy about saying, hey, this isn't for me, but the production's great, and I know there's tons of other
Yeah.
people that'll love
The
this. I'm
costumes
fine.
were fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. But I want to give everyone a heads up that, folks, if you like an album where you know the artist, you're familiar with their previous work, and you have a preconceived notion of what you might get, and then you put it on, and not only is it completely different or even somewhat different from what you expected, but then every song is a new surprise and twist and turn. That's this album. Like, I wasn't sure what to expect knowing your work, but it wasn't this. And it's great because it's kind of like track to track to track to track. There's an amalgamation there's prog, of course, there's some power rock, there's some ballad-esque stuff, there's Americana, there's almost a country rock edge to a couple things. It's really eclectic, but yet it all sounds like it belongs on the same album, which is perfect, right? It's great.
That was kind of that was the challenge of it all. But that's sort of what it is. It's Mike, I've been in this business for four, 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 44 years. And at some point or another, I've played with just about every kind of artist you could imagine.
Right.
I've done rock music. I've done, power pop stuff, Green Day kind of stuff. I've done obviously prog stuff.
Yeah.
I did a number of neo soul records, the
Oh,
fantastic
yeah.
Rasan Patterson and things of that nature. I spent a lot of time just adding backbeats to drum machines to kind of humanize them and just giving it a human feel. And um, so when you've gone all over the place in that fashion, and plus my musical tastes go all over the place. I
Right.
I like good music. I don't care what you call it.
Right.
If it's a great song, if it's got a lyric that I can connect to, even if the lyrics, my Sharona. I mean, it doesn't have to be, they don't all have to be Joni Mitchell and Peter Gabriel and Sting. They can be
Right.
Paul Simon. They can be silly and fun,
Yeah.
but as long as it catches you, a good melody, a great rhythm, you know, makes you think, makes you feel, whatever that is, then I'm down for it. I listen to it, and you can call it rock or pop or country or I don't care. I think names are just ways to separate things.
Yeah,
I think there's good
absolutely.
music and then there's music that doesn't touch you. And that doesn't make it mean it's not good. It just means it doesn't happen to touch you.
You know what? I'd like to comment on that topic, if I may, not to spin too far up, but I love that take you have, because when I started learning drums, I was so I'll be 61 April 2nd. So I started learning about 54 years ago, 2 months ago. Okay. So I was 6.8. Okay. And
Right.
I lived in LA and I listened to an AM station, which was the popular rock station at the time on AM, called 90,
Was it
93
KFI?
K 93 KHJ.
KJ. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right, right, right.
Okay. So I'd put headphones on. My stereo was over there. I'd be at my drums and I'd
93
hear,
KHJ.
yeah, that was it. 93 KHJ. Exactly. I'd hear Neil Diamond and then Steppenwolf and then Barbara
Yeah,
Streisand and then Led Zeppelin
same.
and then Bobby Sherman and then the Fifth Dimension and then Sly and the
Right.
So I didn't, this is before music was segregated by genres and micro segregated, as you just pointed out. So back then, I just thought I was listening to music. And as I
Right.
got a little bit older and had older cousins, 6, 7 years older than me, I heard terms like prog and hard rock.
R&B.
Yeah, and I was like, "What?
You know,
What are you talking?" And they would put on examples, and I go back far enough to when those things were all on one radio station, which you really don't
right.
find anymore. You
No,
know,
and that's sad too.
it
But
is because
I
how
mean,
else would you discover new music if you get stuck in that trench of
I mean,
whatever genre they play?
I don't want to go ugly and deep to, I don't want to harp too much on this concept, but it's really just, an abstract version of racism.
It is,
It's
and
trying to
marketing
make sure
ploys,
that the powers that be, you know, or maybe not the powers that be, that the audience knows that this is black music,
right?
this is white people music, this is Latino music, this is, world music, whatever that means.
Yeah,
It's like there's more world music than there is this, anyway.
yeah.
As long as they can label things like that, then everyone has the ability to know instead of going, oh, this is a great song, I like this.
When
They don't
I
think about what does the artist look like. They think about what does the song make them feel.
Right, right. One more example, if I may, and then we'll switch gears. When I one of the times I saw Genesis, I think it was the Abacab tour. It was at the LA Forum, and there were like 5 or 6 black gentlemen, a row or two down in front of me, and I didn't think anything of it. My wife listens to all kinds of crazy music. Her favorite rock band is Rush, um, and she's black, for those who don't know. But when they opened the show with "Dance on a Volcano," I could see they were looking around like, "Are we at the right place?"
Right,
Because
right,
it told me as I watched them that they were there because of the songs from that album they played with the Earth, Wind, and Fire horns, like Paper
yeah.
Late and whatnot.
No reply at all, and yeah,
Right. And I knew that whatever station they heard those on, they were not playing Cinema Show or the Battle of Epping Forest or the, Fly on a Windshield from The Lamb. So that's interesting. It ties into exactly what you're saying.
but now these guys are going to be exposed to something that they probably never would have heard, and who knows
Exactly.
how it will affect them. And
Right.
and and fortunately, they have the opportunity. Maybe they walk away going, "That was amazing. I've never heard anything like that," and end
Right.
up buying stuff. Or maybe they go, "Well, that wasn't what I expected." But all the same,
They
there's
got
the
exposed to
option to
something new.
choose.
Right. And I do wish radio was more like that. And it's one of the reasons why I really don't listen to radio anymore because
Yeah,
I can't
I don't
find
either.
a station with enough variety of
Right,
and I because like you, I
right.
have so many different, things. But back to your album, I gotta tell you, the biggest surprise for me was your vocals. Like, dude, seriously, you were crushing it. And Stephen and I, my son Steve, folks, is our producer, and he started listening to it before I did and said, a couple comments is then I started listening to it. We had this whole text thread going just about your album back and forth about the production. He commented about all these things. So that was a big surprise. Your singing was just off the hook, and the production quality leads me to ask you: have you produced other artists, and is that a continued path, whether you have or not, that you want to go down?
Yeah, I've well officially produced a couple,
Okay.
but there are also a lot of other artists that I mean, there are bands that I've been part of that I'm involved in the production. I may not take a production credit,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, even the Spock's Beard stuff, we all had a say and stuff. But I was pretty heavy on the first album, um, and then not so much in the second one, but that I was on. But the pattern seeking animals, we're all involved. It's all hands on. We all John writes the songs and he kind of comes up with a sketch, and then we all kind of have a say.
Very
And I
collaborative.
mean, usually, yeah, it's very clever. Usually I'll stay in my lane with drums, but everything influences everything. So sometimes
Yeah.
I'll have an idea and go, the only way this is going to work is if the bass and the guitars and the keys kind of follow in line the same way. And so I'll
Mm-hmm.
throw out suggestions and ideas. And it's always, yeah, it's always collaborative. It's always the idea of how does that sound to you? Do you have any other ideas? And
Yeah.
sometimes the guys will come in and say, hey, what if you did this with the drums? Oh yeah, that's a great idea. And we'll.
That's
But
cool.
but I've always been a fan of producers. I'm a big Trevor Horn fan. I'm a big Don Was fan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, all the greater, classic producers from before. But yeah, David Foster. And engineers. I'm probably one of the few guys that actually knows names of
Oh yeah,
of
yeah,
lots
absolutely.
of engineers because I love the way the drums sound on Tom Petty Wildflowers. It's
Yeah,
like, okay, I got to know how all that happened. And,
yeah. Hugh
so
Patchen.
yeah,
There's
exactly.
so many
Steve
great
Lillywhite.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Hugh Patrick, Steve Lillywhite. Daniel Lanois, and
yeah.
I mean, you could go on and on and on.
Well, I
Uh,
think one of the things that speaks to your production abilities is not only is the sound great, but like I said, they is eclectic to some degree that all the songs are. They do all sound like they belong on the same album. And folks, in case you don't know, having the same vocalist doesn't always be the one thing that makes that work.
no,
It
and
often, I
there's
think, comes more down to production and the soundscape being threaded together somehow.
yeah, and that actually was a I don't know that it was a conscious thought, but I mean, at some point it became um, because this was tracked over. The other challenge was it was tracked over a long span of time.
Mm-hmm.
That there's some recordings that were done early on, and some that were done as recent. I mean, I tracked vocals for one of the last songs weeks ago. I mean,
Wow.
literally. So if you think about if the core of any general song, full band song is the drum set, and then maybe the guitars, the keys, and the vocals and that kind of stuff. There has to be a conscious effort to go, okay, well, this song stylistically may be different, but there still has to be a thread. So, well, okay, my playing is the thread. Maybe I'm going to use the same guitar player on these two songs just to kind of keep a sound to it. But there was some conscious thought to the idea of I have to sort of bring this all together and make it sound like it's under one roof.
Yeah.
To the point of I retract some things just to kind of go, well, the drums didn't really fit. And it wasn't necessarily the performance. It was just that over the course of time, as I got closer to the finishing of the album, I went back to some of the first recordings and said, let's redo this to
To
bring
make
it.
it fit.
Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah.
and that only takes me an hour. It's like, okay, now I know what I'm doing.
Right.
I walk in, I mic it up, I have something very specific in mind, I track it, and then it just sits right in. And now it's
That's
so in
cool.
essence, the record was kind of done cyclically, which also, why did it take so long? Well,
Life happens and you're doing
yeah,
other stuff.
right.
Was
So
this
yeah, so production is something I very much love doing and want to do more of, and I
That's
hope
great.
I mean, at a dead minimum, I'd love this record to be kind of a calling card for that. If maybe if you love the album, the song's great. But more particular, if you like the way it sounds,
Yeah,
give me a ring. I'm right here.
I like that. Was there more to this? Was this a bunch of pent up creativity that you had to finally just turn into something to put out there and get out of your system? And is there a bigger picture to that besides the production calling card? Would you ever play this live? Is there going to be more solo? Do you want a solo career? What is
Yes,
this leading?
yes, and yes,
That's
yes. A
awesome.
lot of it, is because I've been a singer the whole time. When I do cover band stuff, I'm usually the dominant singer. Lately, I haven't been, but in a lot of bands I'm in, I'm the high tenor. So I do all the Journey and I do the Led Zeppelin and
Awesome.
stuff like that. And then when I'm out with bands like Spock's and what have you, I'm the high harmonies, and
Yeah.
you sing enough bits and pieces, and eventually you get people start going, dude, well, when am I going to hear a solo album out of you? And it just finally got on my nerves to the point where it's like, yeah, when are we going to hear a solo note? Damn it. So I started hashing the idea of doing a solo album, and my original thoughts were to get together with these great writers that I knew. Over the course of my life, I've done all
Right.
these demo sessions for, well, if you look at the album, there's a guy named Mark Spiro. Mark Spiro's written for Heart, Bad English, John Waite. I did a record with him with John Waite.
Right.
Greg Lestraps and I, again, we've been friends my whole life, so we've tracked a bunch of his songs. A lot of it is these songwriters that I've worked with over my life that had all these songs that never saw the light of day for, the industry is the industry.
Yeah.
It just, for whatever reason, just never got a chance to get out there and be heard. Or it was put on an album that really didn't sell anything to get anyone's attention.
Right.
Also sad and unfortunate. So I thought, well, instead of, I'm not really much of a songwriter. I don't do it very often. I'm usually more of an arranger.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this library of songs already. It's like, why am I trying to write new songs? I've got songs for days.
Yeah.
And they're brilliant. So, I can say of my own album, the songs on the album are great. I didn't write them.
Yeah.
I'm not being, egotistical or,
Right.
not.
Right.
No, they're not my songs. They're these other songwriters, and I love them because I love them. I put them on the record. I talked to the writers and said, "Do you mind if I do this?" And they're like, "Yeah, it'd be great." So,
will we
that's
see
what
any of
that
these
comes from.
pieces live?
Yeah, I'm already trying to
Really?
form something. My March is nuts. So when I come back from that, I'm going to try and put together at least a show here in LA, and then see if I can get some other shows going.
That's awesome.
Because I'd love to play these songs live, and I already have a band set up in mind. And
Really?
and
Would you
yeah.
do the Chester Phil thing with you singing out front?
No,
And go
no,
back
I'm saying I want to play.
Okay.
I have
Cool.
no interest of standing in front of a drum kit. I'm a drummer,
Cool. That's awesome.
and I learned how to sing at a drum kit. This
Yeah.
is where I sing.
Yeah. That's.
Even
perfect.
when I'm tracking songs for the album, I'm sitting. Most singers would be going, "Why are you sitting down? That's the worst thing you could do."
This is how
I learned how to sing.
Yeah.
That's how I know. When I try to stand and sing, it's like it just ends up feeling weird because this is the technique that I learned.
Your diaphragm is trained for that posture and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to
That's
play.
cool.
I didn't play all these songs to give it to someone else.
Right. I wouldn't think so.
No, I like these songs.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, I'll be behind the kit.
Well, when you know the whole picture of the who and the when of all that, we got to get together again. Let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be good. But yeah, so the other thing is, because these weren't my songs, they were my interpretations of songs. It was also a lot of fun to go, okay, what is it going to sound like? The production side of it, and then choose musicians that are going to, bring out that element. Because again, all these songs have been recorded before, and I play on these demos. So there was already these versions of these songs that I was in love with. I thought, why can't I just port these over? Well, some of them are on analog tape and they don't sound good anymore. And in some cases, the musicians that I used on the original demos, unfortunately, aren't with us anymore. Right. Ross Bolton, great guitar player, played on a couple of tracks, and I wanted to use those tracks. No one's ever heard them.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out. So I I went and found musicians that I'm fortunate to know and love, and had them come on and do their versions of these songs. And I think that was the most fun I had in all of this, is in the process of mixing, is listening to the detail of what they did, and the footprint or the fingerprint that they left on these songs, and just realizing how brilliant they were, what great players they were, both in blatant ways and in the most subtle ways.
Yeah.
Derek Jones plays bass on Where Settlers Go, and he's playing fretless, and it's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a lot of it is recognizing not my contribution to this record, but everyone else's contribution. That was a huge joy for me, is hearing these great players. I mean, that's like any artist. You have session musicians. If you had if you were lucky to have Jeff Porcaro playing your record, now you get to listen to that song every time and go, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Don Henley hearing Dirty Laundry going, I don't want to hear my song anymore, but God, Jeff just plays so great on this song.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, it's
Great
that kind of
examples.
thing. It's the recognition that there's no way that this album is done without, a lot of great musicians contributing something, whatever it is they did, keyboards or,
Yeah.
guitar and bass.
Over what span of time were all these songs written? If you think of when the oldest one of them all versus the most recent
89, 90,
years,
maybe the oldest
no.
song. No, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, like some of the
That's
songs,
interesting.
some of Greg's songs were written in the very either 80, maybe as early as 88 or 89.
That's like 25 years. Wow.
Mostly in the early 90s. The
Or
Mark Spyro
longer,
song
yeah.
was Mark Spyro was like 94, 95.
Wow.
Where Settlers Go is probably somewhere in that same range. And a lot of it there's kind of a circle of musicians and songwriters that we all knew each other back at this time, so we were working in and around and playing on each other's sessions. And
Yeah.
so like the first song, The Fisherman 3, was written by Mark Spyro, Jamie Heath, and Tim Pierce, the guitar player. We had a band. Well, Mark had a band, and I was the last drummer to come in and be part of that.
Interesting.
And we tracked a record for him. But Jamie also knows Greg Lestrapes. And Greg Lestrapes also knows Steve Bonino. And so we're all kind of tied in together,
Yeah. Well, I find it fascinating because the reason I asked is, as I mentioned, all the songs sound like they belong on the same album, and it's not like they were all written in 89 or 90. They span all those
over the
years,
map.
30 whatever years. Yeah.
Platinum the song Platinum was written for someone else 10, 15 years later.
Yeah.
And then the cover songs, the Split End song, Talking Head song, and the Andy Grammer song are all decades apart.
Yeah. How neat.
Oh, well, the Talking Heads and Split Ends are close to each other. But
So what was the most fun or gratifying experience of putting this together and doing it? And what was the most challenging aspect?
the most challenging aspect was the finance. I mean, it's just getting, if you have a budget, you call a musician and say, I'm going to pay you this amount of money. When are you available? They're available tomorrow.
Yeah.
If not today. It's like, well, what are you doing now?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
getting them to work, to pay them to do something. But when you're asking your friends to, like, hey, man, think you could play guitar in this for me? They're available when they're available. And it's, when they have time to devote to it. And some of those musicians were like, hey, man, come by, next Tuesday. Okay, cool. Next Tuesday. Some musicians, there's a lot of musicians that didn't end up in the record because they just never got around to doing it. And I had to kind of just move on.
Keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah. I had one friend that was supposed to play bass on a song that had an aneurysm and a stroke. And it's like, well, he's not going to be on the record.
Is he okay?
He is okay now. Oddly enough, he should be dead, and he's not. Thank God, he's
Maybe
still
he plays
floating around
better.
with us, and he's back to playing, which is
Good.
thankful. But yeah, it's like at some point it was like, no,
Yeah.
I had to get somebody else.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest challenge, is scheduling.
Yeah.
Obviously it took 9 years,
Yeah. Wow.
and just making it work within life. When you don't have $100,000 to do something like this, to live off of and to spend,
yeah. You have
on
other
studio time and
commitments.
everything.
It was squeaking it in all those little
Yeah,
creases.
or getting the right gear that to make it sound correct and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And fortunately, I have connections at certain instrument companies and microphone companies,
Yeah.
like this fantastic Audio Technica 5047 microphone, large diaphragm condenser, one of the most beautiful microphones on the market right now. See, it's hard unless you get the
Exactly.
support of these wonderful
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah. And things are
Um,
different in the music industry than they were 30, 40 years ago. It's a whole
yeah, no,
different
it's
thing. Yeah.
so yeah. I mean that was the biggest challenge, and then like within the music, um, I think my ears are dying here.
Mine did. That's why
I,
I have to wear hearing aids now.
I think I need to put my headphones on, my proper headphones on here now. But yeah, it's one of the challenges was nope, that's the wrong cable. Sorry about this.
That's okay. You're good.
Kind of
I'm
surprised
going to
my
read a
headphones
couple
died.
comments. Let's start with Joseph Cowan says, I've always felt so much influence in each album with your drive, more than any other instrument. Awesome. And he also
Wow.
says, we must hear them, meaning the songs. Well, you can pre order the album and click on the link, and it's right there. I can't cut them in because they'll get
Yeah.
flagged with the copyright stamp, which I call kind of like a sonic fingerprint. It gets identified, gets flagged. So that's why we don't play original released studio or live stuff, but we play often bootleg stuff and things like
Right.
that don't get snagged. But go ahead and click on the link. The record is just great.
If you do a pre-order, it lets you listen to 2 songs
Yeah,
right off the top.
yeah.
Or I mean, I think maybe you can listen to them before that or something like that as a preview.
Yeah, I did 6 pre-orders so I could hear all of them.
Let me swap this out here real quick.
Sure.
Make sure I can still
Thanks
hear
for
you.
joining us, everybody. Tell us where you're watching from, by the way. We're here with Jimmy Keegan, who is putting out a wonderful solo album that I think anyone who listens to it will be surprised and impressed, regardless of how familiar or not they are of your previous work with Spock's Beard and Pattern Seeking Animals. And you got another gig coming up as the one of the hosts of Cruise to the Edge. You want to talk about that a little bit?
That was fun. Yeah, I mean, well, I'm assuming.
Oh,
It's gonna be
your
fun, but-
volume's much lower now.
Oh shoot, it switched. Hold on. Nope.
Okay, no worries.
That should be the same. Is it good?
It's if you get real close to it, yeah.
Well, no, that should be.
It's the blue button.
Yeah, it's swapped. Oh crap.
He's working on it, folks. But he's going to be one of the co-hosts of
Let's do
Cruise to
this.
the Edge. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that was we weren't scheduled to be on the boat this year because it sold out a lot faster than they expected it to sell,
Wow.
and they just ran out of space to bring on any new acts.
Oh, wow.
We were at some point we were going to be on like one of the last bands to be announced, and they just didn't have any room to bring us on. I mean, it makes sense that the cost of having a band, for starters, you have to pay us, and then you have to give us 5, however many members of the band rooms,
Right.
which means you lose those rooms and whatever income that could be brought in. So from their perspective, yeah, we don't need any more bands. If
Yeah.
we've already got a full house, then leave it alone. So
So had that call come in to be a co-host.
apparently I was referred from, when they started talking about, John Kirkman, the guy who normally is the main host. He's not feeling well at the moment. He's not going to be able to make it out. So they needed to put someone else in the boat. And, I can talk. I grew up an actor. So, the idea of grabbing a microphone and
Yeah.
keeping people, on their feet and interested, I've done that my whole life.
Yeah.
And plus they figured, well, I was also a relatively well-known name in that field, on that boat at least.
Yeah.
So, why not try that? So they asked me, and after we worked out some scheduling, conflicts, we made it happen. And now I can't wait to do it. It's going to be a blast.
That's great. And you're doing it with Roey Avin, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And who's the third guy?
Geddy Lee, I
Oh,
think. No.
yeah, right. Names as of late.
Stephen mentioned it to me
Um,
earlier, and I don't recall either. Steve's going to type it in, I bet, before we find it.
yes, Mike
Ah,
Dawson.
Jason
Yeah.
Gianni is chiming in. There's always some troll
Yay!
that chimes in. I mean,
Troll.
Jason, what's happening? He says, two of my favorite people right there. Thanks so much. And also, here's another comment from Mike Dawson, says Stephen. Mike
Yeah,
Dawson.
yeah. Mike
Yeah,
Dawson.
thanks, Steve. And Jason, we got to talk. There's a lot going on. I want to read a comment from Justin Picarillo, if I'm pronouncing that right. And he says, hey, Jimmy, met you on the Spock's Beard in New York City for my 40th birthday. It keeps moving. One sec.
Nice.
40th birthday years ago. Could you comment on what it's like coming up in a band and learning Nick's parts?
Yeah, that was fun. It's at some point, unless you are the band member, anytime you get a gig, you're like a cover drummer. It's really no different than being in a cover band, except you're playing one artist's music all night.
Right.
So the first thing you do is talk to the artist, and this is what I did with Nick: is talk to them and say, how much of this do you want me to play, verbatim? How much of it is important to you that you want me to play exactly what's on the record, and how much can I interpret? And I'm in situations like that. I don't really know that I automatically assume interpretation. I assume play the record.
Mm.
But then you start listening to that. I mean, especially in that kind of music, if it's a really like a pop type gig where it's mostly 4/4 and just timekeeping and coloring it with fills and everything, there's not much to change.
Yeah. What else are you going to do? Yeah.
But in this kind of stuff, there's a lot of things where, I mean, the way he plays it, it's like I'm not Nick DiVirgilio. It's I don't balance that way. So it's like I have to ask, can I make this my own thing? So we had conversations about each song, and he kind of focused me like, this is something that I think is key to this part. Okay, great. And I asked, can I change this? And he was like, except for the things that I really ask for, And again, change is relative. It's like I'm not. My point is to not come in and completely cause upheaval. It's to just kind of. I feel like it's like the difference between listening to early Genesis and then listening to Chester Thompson.
Yeah.
It's still the same song.
Yeah.
But Chester has an entirely different feel than Phil Collins does.
Yeah. And even drum sound.
Yeah, everything. I mean, everything. And I think that's what Phil wanted. He wanted this different interpretation to come in, or even with Bill Bruford.
Yeah.
Nobody sounds like Bill Bruford.
Right. Nobody.
Well, nobody sounds like Phil Collins. It's like,
Right.
You can't really walk in. And so once we had those conversations and I knew that, okay, he wanted this. And other than that, I could kind of, just play it how I felt it. Yeah, then it was just a matter of rehearsals and getting used to the way the songs flow. And as the concerts go on and you get to know the guys a little bit better, especially working with Dave. Dave Merrowes is one of the greatest bass players to ever play the instrument. As you get to know those guys better, even that informs the way you interpret the song. So it's like, oh, Al wants to play the guitar like this in this section. So it's like, oh, I'm going to feature that. I'm going to see if I can kind of either get out of the way of that and let that come out or play something with it.
Complement it.
To complement it. Yeah. And so you start making these choices that kind of makes the song organically shift a little bit as it's going on. But you also have to take into consideration the fan base, because most of the guys in this audience know exactly how this song goes.
Yeah.
So if you stray too far,
they'll call you out on it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I even did when I first joined the Spocks, I sent a message and said, hey, look, I'm going to do what I can to honor this music, but I'm also going to kind of bring a bit of myself into this per this conversation. So, yeah. And even that, as you start playing it, you also even find, oh, you know what? I think I'm wrong. I think this is why he played this. And you learn, oh, I need to go back to what he was doing in that. I mean, all those kinds of things happen in the process.
Yeah.
And by the fourth or fifth show, it's all smooth sailing.
Yeah. That's
so
great.
whoever sees the first show is like, ugh.
Great question, Justin. Thank you very much. So, do you have most of your year already planned out? Do you work that way, or is it dictated to you? Is it
a good
lot
portion
of it up
of
to
it?
You, or?
Yeah, a good portion of it's planned, but at the same time, I'm also of the mindset that you know, someone's going to call next week, or someone might call next week that offers something a different direction. So there's certain things that are planned out, but those are usually the things that are like cover bands and um, uh, corporate type gigs where if I don't do the gig, the world goes on. They get another drummer to come in and play the gig.
Right.
Whereas, yeah, if like something happens with the record where, hey, well, this is actually getting a lot of traction and I need to pay a lot more attention to this than I planned, or if another artist of a certain caliber calls to say we're going to go on the road, then you adapt and move.
Right.
But not without like confirming those other acts are covered and,
Yeah.
you're not leaving them, you have to be professional about the thing and not leave everyone in the lurch. You have to cover your bases. And
Absolutely.
but yeah, it's usually I've got about 6 or 7 months kind of booked out.
Great. And Justin says, thank you. I appreciate it. I remember it well. And your drumming was amazing. And additionally, the harmonies were spot on. That's cool because you learned more than just the drum parts of that previous music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the reason I mean, when Nick thought of me for that gig, it was for that reason. Because Nick and I knew each other around town. We'd actually never met face to face for like the first 4 or 5 years we knew each other. It was always just phone calls because he was the singing drummer.
Yeah.
I was a singing drummer. If I needed to fill in, I couldn't just get a drummer. I had to get somebody who could sing.
Yeah.
So you learn very quickly who are those guys. And Nick was always, the guy at the top of that list, and vice versa. I was at the top of his list because we had, we ended up doing similar songs and similar ranges. And so, yeah, I mean, we got to know each other that way. So when Spock's came up, it's like, well, I need somebody who can literally take my spot.
Yeah.
And there's only a handful of guys that can do that. I mean, really, and on the grands, like in the world, because it's not just a matter of being able to play the parts, but also being able to have that range, because he sings all the top parts.
Right.
He's the falsetto and tenor of the band. So it narrows that field down to like, a select handful of us. I know a lot of guys that sing. It's not just being a singing drummer. It's being a singing drummer that can get up there and sing in high ranges. And
right.
So it's,
Dean Castronovo comes to mind. He does such an amazing job.
Yeah, it's
uncanny.
A-list drummer and beyond A-list singer. And so but that's it. And so imagine him needing to sub that gig. It's like, who do you call? Well, there's like 4 of us.
Right.
And I wouldn't even say, because I can sing in that range, but to carry a show like that,
right? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Singing high is one thing for one song, but singing high like
for a show,
9 songs, at that level, you've got to have a particular voice. So who can sub for him? Nobody. Not really.
Right. That's cool.
Gig security.
Yeah, for sure.
It's something that nobody can do.
Yeah. Do you? And I ask this not to minimize this accomplishment we're talking about with your new album, but do you have anything planned for the next one as far as the theme, or will it be all your own music, or will you follow sort of the same pattern, no pun intended?
Yeah, right. Funny how that works. I think that the next album, and I do want to do another one, because now that I've finished it, as much as this one took forever, the next one will not.
Yeah.
A lot learned in the process, and things that I won't repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, because my life isn't going to do that again. I had some things happen in life that just kind of, well, that's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
But yeah, the next one will actually incorporate more writing. I'll probably get together with 1 or 2 of these guys as I originally planned, and sketch out songs and actually be more involved in the creation of the song.
Great.
Yeah, and maybe more collaborations in terms of like other people, instrumentalists. I think that was the hardest part, is like there's other people that I wanted on the record, either that their schedules didn't work out, or just I didn't meet them until it was too late. Oh, you would have sounded great on this song.
So now there'll be a new opportunity.
Yeah. So now it's like, okay, well, let's just look for other ways to do this. And, or other friends that I just hadn't communicated with in a while that I once I reconnected with him, like, oh shoot, I really wish you could have played on this.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the
That's
next one
awesome.
will definitely. And I'm not so sure I haven't already started. I mean, Pattern Seeking Animals is already in the middle of tracking. We've already got 4 songs, drums for 4 songs in the can for our 5th record.
Nice.
You know, I'm
That's
already
exciting.
kind of hashing out ideas, but most of my focus is now on, you know, on this.
Yeah. That's
So
cool. Well, congratulations. It's a great album, folks. The link
thanks.
is in the post. It's also pinned to the top of the comments. Check it out. You will not be disappointed no matter what kind of music you're into. It's very nicely eclectic. It all goes together. The drumming's great, the singing's great, the other instruments are great, and the production is great. It's really a great accomplishment. I should be very proud of it.
I am. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
I
Hang on the
appreciate all
line
that,
with
but
what's that?
I appreciate all that. It's
Yeah.
as long as I worked on it. When I hear good compliments, it's like,
Oh, that's great. That's great. And you
well,
heard
geez,
Steve.
you know.
Awesome. Well, hang on the line with me for a bit after we hang up. And thanks everybody so much for following what we do and joining Jimmy Keegan and myself here on Drum Talk TV. We are major Gillette endorsers. So there you go. Go out and get some Gillette after you get this album. Great to listen to while you're shaving your head. And watch for some other great stuff happening. We will be having Jimmy on again to give us some correspondence from Cruise to the Edge. I'll be working something out with him really soon on that. And everyone, have fun. Listen to some good music, play some good music, and we'll see you all soon. Thanks.
Cheers.